So Lev asked about what is creativity to you, and I after that I wanted to ask you about the difference between illustration and art, or rather illustration, or what people conceive of as fine art.
But I also wanted to drop a quick indent into that question, which is, if we're talking about, let's say, the idea of making some kind of form, making some kind of creature. Like, I don't know about you, Owen, but I think that you had a very fun time drawing the demons more than drawing Saint Anthony in that Saint Anthony with the demons picture. Now, that could just be a wild guess, but at least I found that it's always interesting to create these weird-looking creatures, like these Pokemon-like things, and I think that there is something to us to have this ability to combine all these weird shapes together and make these weird-looking creatures. I mean, Gio, you've seen the crazy hell trip that I just put on when I was 13 years old. I'm all into doing that kind of stuff, and my Romeo and Juliet picture as well. So I'm curious, where you stand on that kind of creativity, which you could say that you are portraying things and having fun with things that go beyond just sitting down somewhere and praying and that's it.
Yeah. I like that we're kind of hitting the ground running here. Sometimes it takes a while to get to the interesting stuff, but you guys are like, what is the purpose of your life? What is the nature of creativity? No, actually. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. Specifically for, well, I guess, you asked, what is creativity? It's kind of like a impossible to answer question. But I think that it's more easy for me to say, what I find compelling about it or what I think is there deeper. I think there's something about it that I don't really necessarily think of creativity as just making stuff up so much as it is illuminating and going further into some type of invisible landscape that seems to already exist in some capacity. And that's part of what I find fascinating about it. When I'm even just at my desk, combining symbols and putting things together, I don't think of it like someone who's tinkering with some type of machine parts, and you invent some new machine. It's more like I'm using those symbols as tools to see what's going on, you could say under the surface, to see where I can find some hills in the landscape, and maybe there's a rock and there's a divot over here. So I think there's something about it in that way where when you're being creative, it probably sounds paradoxical to most people, but in visual art, at least, it's almost like you're discovering things that are there, or using the creative process as a torch to illuminate deeper into, that depends on who you're talking to, your subconscious or nature, or, the mind of, the macro mind, or the nature of God or something, it depends on who you're talking to at that point. But that's what I think I find compelling about it. As for the other part of it, I think you're kind of touching on drawing demons is cool. And then, maybe the other stuff is a little bit more tame. It's kind of an interesting question. I have a big background in some forms of Buddhist art. Specifically, I'm thinking of Tibetan art right now. And there's something interesting about it that I think I did subconsciously take away, where some people would disagree with this, but this is just my own subjective take. In a lot of Tibetan art, you don't really see demons or really evil embodied. And if there are weird things like, someone drinking blood, or a bowl of guts and a heart spilled out with severed noses and tongues and everything, it's not really illustrating evil. So I think that I partially did take that away because, in this picture you pulled up and mentioned, I definitely did enjoy drawing those, we could say evil creatures. I think at that time it was because I was really illuminating these parts of my mind and materializing them in a way that I hadn't thought about before. That's another aspect of the creative process where, we could go off on this tangent, but I think that if you look back to ancient things, masks and cultures, sculptures of deities and things like that, I see a lot of that as trying to embody these unseen forces that govern our life. It's a condition of being in the world, no matter what your worldview is, that there's all these things that you can't see, but paradoxically, they constrain you. And your life is partially interacting with these unseen forces. Even if you're an atheist, you get a letter from the government, but you don't see the government, but you can't pretend it doesn't exist. So I think that part of the creative process also is embodying those forces so you can materialize them and conceptualize them in a different way.